both of us, man and woman, somehow we make idols of each other, different ways, but it's very common. I mean, you can look at young girls. So if they have a boyfriend, they are someone. If they are not someone. And this is a primitive way of illustrating this. But we are called to raise up and find our identity in God. We cannot demand of creation, of another human being, that they shall give us the meaning of life. It's God. It's the listening to God who will give us the calling, our mission in life. Everyone has a mission. This is freedom, and this makes me capable of loving graciously. And Etty Hillesum, I take her because she's a wonderful example. She was a woman, she found her identity, she rose up, she met God in prayer. And in the end of her diary, before dying, she was on her way to Ravensbrück. One of the last pages there is, "This roaring instinct of possession has left me. 1,000 bonds that waited upon me are broken. Now I am free, and I no longer want to possess anything or anyone, because my inner riches are enormous." Now she was alone, but she was not alone. But she was able to love in an astounding way in this camp, where people were desperate, and she was in peace, living for others. Very different from, claiming from another person that they should make me happy. So now the union of bodies does not just automatically lead to union of the persons. The physical desires incite man and also woman to satisfy the body at the price of the personal communion. This is very common. And so sexual shame comes in here, in this loneliness that comes in. So, in the beginning, now how do we come back? This is the diagnosis, this is the analysis of that the biblical authors do, and it's marvelous the self-knowledge they have in writing these texts. Short sentences that contain the key to our situation. So how do we come back now? Jesus is calling us back to the paradise, to this beginning where man and woman were not only in union, but they were in communion with God. And so they doubted, they lost everything. So the root of the evil is doubt. The solution must be faith. That we take in this word as real. If you knew the gift of God, says Jesus to the Samaritan woman, she was someone, who had many lovers, many men, and she was still thirsty, she was still dissatisfied. So she's like a parable of this human situation. So Jesus is saying the same to us. If you knew the gift of God, we were stealing the gift. We all want to be God ourselves. And yet he comes and he offers again the gift. Do you want to receive me in your life? I will allow you to unite with me, with my perfect, unspoiled humanity. So you will have part in the innocence from the beginning. Then you will be able to love with my love. Also with your sexuality. This is the way, it's a very different way from some kind of moral effort when you turn away your eyes from everything that is beautiful. This was, I remember a brother, Dominican brother, an old brother who told me that in his novitiate, the novice master told the young men that when they saw, because Dominicans go out, when they saw a beautiful woman, they should immediately, as a reflex, imagine her without teeth and ugly. But Jesus doesn't want, this is horrible. This is horrible. He doesn't want us to turn away our eyes, but to renew our eyes, to transform us. It's a process. That's why he's appealing to our hearts. Theology of body is not a theory of the body. It's a way of life. And I believe this is really what you do very practically, pastorally, with people to transmit this, that it changes lives. And here the heart, also when he appeals to the heart, doesn't mean emotional life. In the Bible, heart means thoughts, will, reason, in fact. So it's really life transforming through your reason, assimilate this truth. In Romans 12, St. Paul said, let yourself be transformed through the renewal of your thoughts. If we start thinking differently of our bodies and of other people, we change. It's not enough to respect laws. We get trapped in legalism and Pharisaism and so on. And at the other end of the spectrum, you can put a burqa over a woman, so that you don't even see her, and you think that the problem is solved. Nothing is solved, of course. The heart has to change. And in the Sermon of the Mount, this is what Jesus is heading at. Blessed are the pure of heart. They shall see God. They shall see the image of God in man and woman. So Jesus presupposes that we have this freedom to resist our desires, that we are not completely slaves. Christ calls us to the purity of our heart, I already said. Another word for this is chastity. And this word chastity, kyskhet, på svenska säger man det på danska också, kyskhet, is not often, doesn't have a very positive connotation. You associate kyskhet with fear of the body, ego controlling these dark forces, and so on. But I try to explain what it really is. Of course, you have in this word, in this virtue, something of self-constraint, yes, self-mastery. It's part of chastity, but to restrain yourself or to control yourself in any area doesn't mean, if you understand it well, frustration, to live in a constant tension, but the opposite, to be free from tension, to be empowered. Self-control and power go hand in hand. It is the person who cannot constrain himself, who cannot control himself, that suffers from tensions. I take the area of aggression. We have an aggressive force in us, and the most powerful person is definitely not the one who gets, breaking things and getting, screaming and throwing himself on the floor and like this. It's the one who can control this power and with his reason act in a reasonable way. That's powerful. So each time that I give in to a desire, if I lack self-control, this desire will get power over me. And so there will be more and more tension, more and more frustration. As soon as I have finished eating, I start thinking, when can I have the next meal? This can become like that, for example. the concupiscence, the desires, they are present in our hearts. But it is only when we give them power, when we get into them, that they take power over us. So this is very important to understand, that we are free. You know, we mustn't just give up and say, this is too much for me, too strong, you know, I give in. No, we have this possibility. This is important to say. It's especially important because if we are trapped in compulsive behavior, for example, pornography, it's very difficult to break. And if someone is determined to try, the first step is always the most difficult. It's hell. And there will be a voice saying, give up, you know, it's no point, give up. But no, we have this capacity. God has given us. So self-mastery doesn't mean contempt for any passion, any positive values, but controlling yourself in order to live eros. That means, you know, really giving yourself to build something together with another human being. This is self-possession, self-control that enables us to do. Concupiscence, on the contrary, makes us blind to the other person. We don't see the other person. We only see our own tensions or needs or compulsions. Christ is calling each human being to a discernment of the heart. I think you mentioned that the whole lecture, whole weekend of discernment of the heart. Very important to become aware of all what's going on in our hearts. There are so many impulses and desires. We have to discern them in a mature way. I quote here the Pope, "In all that concerns the body and the senses and the sensuality, he has to become an inner man, capable of controlling the instincts, like a guardian guarding a hidden well." A well, something, a treasure here, but we have to watch over it, this treasure. Sensuality. Sensuality also is not something bad in itself, but we have to always ask ourselves, for whom is this feeling? Is it for me, or is it for the other person? Self-possession is part of chastity, it's part of being a mature human being, to grow up. But it's not the essence of chastity. Everything is not a question of willpower, but the pure heart is a true heart, to live according to truth, to live according to this vision of God. And in the first letter to Thessalonikerbrevet har jag skrivit här. Vad heter det? Okay, you understand. St. Paul writes, "For this is the will of God, your sanctification, that you abstain from unchastity, that each one of you keep his body with holiness and reverence. Keep your body with reverence. This has to do with truth. When you revere a person, do you say revere or revere? Revere, yeah. Revere. When you revere someone, you uphold the truth of this person, the dignity of this person. You honor your parents because they are the source of your life. You know, you honor their dignity, the truth of that they are the source of your life. You honor a president by showing respect and so on. And you honor your body by recognizing its dignity, its goodness, its truth. That the body, as I said, or as the Pope says, reveals the divine mystery of gift. That it expresses a unique human being. So chastity means respecting this truth. And I would say, if you take the Me Too whole thing that happened, I don't know if it was the same proportions as in Sweden, the Me Too, but it was maybe one of the countries in the world where Me Too became the most, the greatest thing, so to speak. And what all the women are asking for, even though it was not said like this, is chastity, to be treated with respect as persons. To expose a sexual act is perverse and dishonoring the body, because not because sexuality is perverse, but because it's the expression of the most intimate gift that can only be entrusted to one other person. So to expose it is to dishonor, to make violence to the truth of the body, to its integrity. To revere the body means also respecting the truth, the language of the body, not manipulating it as if it were a machine. Our fertility is not a sickness. It's not even a threat against love. It's not a mistake of the Creator. And it's not just a biological side issue, but it's really an integral part of our persons as men and women. The body, witness of divine, invisible mysteries, life-giving mysteries, something very beautiful and fragile, rightly understood, rightly integrated. Stress rightly, not as a imposition, no, but as a wonderment. It is a power and a treasure for a couple. If the man imposes his own rhythm on the woman who has a different rhythm, different relation to time, and if the man requires that she make violence to her biological functions, this is a way to dominate her. To respect the nature of woman as different is an expression of love. And in fact, if the woman's rhythm is respected, that domination is reversed. Now it's the woman not dominating, but she's leading. It's her rhythm that man is sort of following. And this, I don't have the quote here, but how it can change. This is something Peter and Cecilia has offered, how it changes the life, the common life. To take in the rhythm of the woman in life. You mean music without rhythm gets quite boring. And common life without a rhythm is less exciting, in fact. To honor the body also means to respect the other person's body as different. To respect different reactions. So chastity is not abstinence, you see, at all. John Paul II writes, this is from his book, Love and Responsibility. Man must be aware that woman is different, reacts differently, not out of a hedonistic motivation, but of real care and tenderness for the woman. And the Pope here insists that this is never a question of technique. This has nothing to do with technique, but a question of tenderness, the capacity to feel the other's soul. And the most important point in all sexual education, he says, he writes, is to learn that the other is more important than myself. Very beautiful. to learn that the other is more important than the other person. So here I have a quote, I will end soon, from Peter and Cecilia Wiberg. What is chastity? It is a tremendous change in the relationship. I move my focus from trying to get something to giving. I give my wife happiness. Sexuality means meeting and coming close to the one you love. Yes, it is something physical, but the most important thing is to focus on the other person, her soul. If you allow yourself to forget the body, you'll discover that the body will follow naturally. Before, I could try to persuade my wife to have sex, and I thought this was perfectly normal. Today, this would be unthinkable. It is the mutual encounter that I seek, which means the union of two wills. The great change in our life is that the experience of a certain weariness, or even boredom, he says, is replaced by an constant experience of renewal. This is because I continuously discover more and more of my beloved wife. If I reduce her to a body, it doesn't take long before I've explored it and get bored. This is what happened in so many marriages and relations. So chastity does not mean abstinence, but truth. To respect the truth of the body as personal, self-giving, and different. And there is so much confusion in this area because so many, especially Catholics maybe, talk about chastity as only about abstinence. And they were never told that the sexual union could be a place of sanctity and honor. As the Pope said, God himself be glorified through this human act. It's not only a question of self-constraint, self-domination, self-power, and then truth. It's also a gift of the Holy Spirit, of course. Through baptism, we become temple of the Holy Spirit, and who is renewing us. Do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit within you, which you have from God, and that you do not belong to yourself? So the Holy Spirit is changing us. No rules can change our hearts. But Jesus gives his life to us, and when we receive him, he starts living in us, filling us with his Spirit, and helps us to live in a new way. Not as a constraint, as an obligation, but as a drive toward happiness. The Spirit transforms ourselves slowly, transforming our appetites, drives, needs, instincts. Peter said to me that now I can look at any woman without fear of betraying my wife. I can sort of celebrate even her beauty, so this is a work of the Spirit. Temperance inclines us to engage the appetites with reason instead of letting our reason follow the appetites. The Holy Spirit do not leave the body at the moment of physical union between spouses. The Spirit is rather more present in a man when he is living a sincere self-donation through love. I will skip some things, and I will end with a prayer that also is from Christopher West's. So I thank him, taken from his book, Theology of the Body for Beginners. Lord, I thank you for the gift of my sexual desires. I surrender this lustful desire to you, and I ask you, please, by the power of your death and resurrection, to untwist in me what sin has twisted, so that I might experience the transformation of sexual desire as you intend, as the desire to love in your image. Lord, help me to discern the movements of my heart. Help me to distinguish between the great riches of sexuality as you created it to be, and the distortions of lust. I grant you permission, Lord, to slay my lusts. Take them, crucify them, so that I may come to experience the resurrection of sexual desires as you intend. Grant me a pure heart, Lord. Amen. Tack så mycket. Thank you very much.